Your Minnesota Vikings, they take care of business after beating the Oakland Raiders, moving to 2-1 on the season so far, beating the Oakland Raiders by a final score yesterday, 34-14. I thought it would be a much tougher game than what it actually turned out to be, but the Vikings, they handled their business. At this point in time, is there any offensive line in the league that can really stymie this Vikings defensive line? I don't think there is. We know what they've done in years past under head coach Mike Zimmer, but in regards to this season, the first 3 games, they've already faced 2 quality offensive lines in the Green Bay Packers in week 2 and the Oakland Raiders yesterday, and in both cases, it didn't matter. Both Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr saw consistent pressure. Derek Carr, he took on 4 sacks and 5 hits yesterday. Everson Griffin and Danielle Hunter, they both had a sack in TFL apiece. So good job. The defensive line, they were all over the place. And even when the offensive line of the Raiders presented clean pockets for Derek Carr to work with, he was super skittish, very rattled, had his head on a nonstop swivel saying, oh God, am I about to get hit again? He really looked like the week 2 version of Kirk Cousins, throwing lots of overthrown passes. I'm just going to estimate that Derek Carr probably threw about 4 miles worth of overthrown passes yesterday, one of which led to a Harrison Smith interception. So good job on that. Eric Wilson did a magnificent job filling in for Anthony Barr. He had 11 tackles, 2 sacks, and 2 tackles for losses. He was really, really outstanding in that game yesterday. Yes, he gave up the touchdown pass to J.J. Nelson off the flea flicker, and let's talk about that. You would figure after last season in the Rams game, after Anthony Barr got exposed, so every single time he lined up on a wide receiver, the Rams, they took advantage of it. Why are we still having linebackers line up on wide receivers? That should never, ever happen again, and you can't be surprised when the opposing offenses, when they take advantage of it. You cannot let that happen again. That is just asking for the opposing offenses to give up big plays. But anyway, Eric Wilson, he was all over the place yesterday. Eric Kendricks is back, mofos. He was a full-on force yesterday, and I don't know if he wore the green dot. I'm assuming he did. I didn't see any confirmation with Anthony Barr being out. I don't know if he wore the green dot, but based on the vibe of the game and based on watching it, Eric Kendricks was clearly the leader of the defensive unit out there yesterday. He did a marvelous job. He might make a Pro Bowl this year. And Darren Waller, you couldn't stop that man at all. He was a one-man wrecking crew in the passing game. I said Tyrell Williams and Darren Waller, those are the 2 receiving weapons that you have to worry about. Everybody else, they're not really good at all. Tyrell Williams, you shut him down except for that late touchdown that he got in garbage time, which who cares? It doesn't matter. The game was already over with. Darren Waller was all over the place, making plays left and right. So we keep giving up big games to tight ends, but it still didn't matter either way. The run game, they shut down the running game. The Minnesota Vikings did, kept the Raiders' run game in check with 88 rushing yards total for the game, including a key 4th-and-1 stop against Josh Jacobs. So they did a magnificent job and Josh Jacobs, he was dealing with an illness before the game, so maybe they were having him on a pitch count. He only had 10 carries. He did average, 4.4 or 4.5 yards a carry, whatever it was. So he still had a pretty good game, but they just didn't give him the ball enough. Maybe they had him on a pitch count. The Vikings defense, they did the damn thing. They really, really did yesterday. Now, moving to the offense, Dalvin Cook. We already understand that Dalvin Cook he's going to be the Vikings MVP for this season. I don't think it's a surprise. We all understand that. But forget that. I think Dalvin Cook is making a strong case early on in this season so far through the first 3 games. He's making a case for being in the conversation of MVP of the league. Patrick Mahomes, if he gets it, then as far as what we're seeing right now, if Patrick Mahomes gets it, then Dalvin Cook should be the runner-up. And I would even make the argument for Dalvin Cook over Patrick Mahomes. He makes this whole offense go. He opens up the play action. He opens up the passing game as a whole. And as long as Kirk Cousins is demonstrating good decision-making on the field, Dalvin Cook makes this whole offense as to opposing defenses a big-ass jigsaw puzzle. You can't pick your poison, or you can pick your poison. It doesn't matter. You don't know what this offensive attack will come at you with play after play after play. It really does open up the playbook as a whole. Dalvin Cook, his stat line yesterday, 16 carries, 110 yards, and a touchdown. Crazy. 3 straight games with at least 100 yards rushing. And while we're on the subject of Dalvin Cook, let's go ahead and get to our double R play of the game.
Dalvin Cook with a burst of speed. What a cut by Cook. Another one. And Cook will wind up with a first down.
This play by Dalvin Cook really highlights the magician that he is on the football field with his footwork. He starts off to his right, cuts back to the left, get out my face, cuts to his left again, bam, cuts to his right, bye-bye. It's crazy how good this man is. And everybody that made fun of me when I said that Dalvin Cook, even the last 2 years, I said he's one of the best running backs in the league, talent-wise, he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. Where are y'all at? Where y'all at now? He's the best running back in the league right now, and he's making an early case so far to be your MVP or the MVP of the league, at least in the conversation anyway. So that play right there, get the hell up out my face twice to the left, and then once to the right is the double R play of the game. Now, we move on to Kirk Cousins. I thought Kirk Cousins was very, very impressive yesterday, granted against a terrible secondary by the Oakland Raiders. He made plays. He did it. You can only play against the team that's in front of you. He made plays. He took care of the football, didn't turn the ball over one time. And Mark Schlereth, he was the color commentator for the game yesterday, at least here out in Oakland, out in the Bay Area. So I don't know if it was different for you guys out there in Minnesota. I don't know if it was Paul Allen, but for my side anyway, maybe it was all around. Mark Schlereth, he was the color commentator for that game, and he brought up a very interesting theology or very interesting theory when it came to Kirk Cousins yesterday against the Raiders. He said something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing here, that Kirk Cousins is throwing with conviction. He's now throwing with purpose behind each and every pass. And it's so true because the week 2 game against the Green Bay Packers, he was just super scared all over the place, and he was throwing balls or throwing passes for the sake of, well, I'm just going to throw it up and see what happens. But this game against the Raiders, you can tell he was a lot more confident. Maybe that opening drive with the touchdown pass to Adam Thielen gave him a boost of confidence for the rest of the game. I hope it did. Maybe it did. And hopefully that carries over against the Chicago Bears. But Kirk Cousins, he was playing with purpose behind each and every pass. And the best way that I can explain it is, and again, Kirk Cousins, he's scared and he thinks too much. When he thinks too much, he's his own worst enemy on the football field to the detriment of the team as a whole. The best way that I can explain it is I play basketball, and something that I struggled with early on was open court layups. So I pride myself on being a very good defensive player, a good playmaker. I've tried not to take a lot of shots and try to get other players involved. But sometimes, let's say if I'm playing good defense and I strip the ball away and I gun it and no one's in front of me, no one's behind me, and I'm going for an open court layup, there were too many times I would make the layups at a more efficient rate if someone was guarding me, because I was thinking about, okay, how can I make the move necessary to make this layup with this guy guarding me? When I was wide open, all I thought to myself was, oh God, don't screw up. You're going to look like a jackass, until I finally worked on my technique. And instead, now when I go for layups, I don't think about don't screw up. I just think about the practicing that I've done in executing the play, such as when you lay the ball up, let the backboard bounce the ball for you instead of bouncing it off the backboard, if that makes sense. Kind of like touch in soccer. But when you think too much and you get in your own way, and I thought Mark Schlereth, he brought up a really, really good point with Kirk Cousins. He played well yesterday. He just needs to do that consistently. Now we go to the offensive line. Stop trashing this offensive line. I think their pass protection is average, which I'll take compared to last year and 2016. Their run blocking is exceptional. It really is. And we understand that the Raiders pass rush is butt-ass. But with that said, coming into week 3 before the game yesterday, the Oakland Raiders were the 5th best run-stopping defense in the league. And Dalvin Cook still had over 100 yards rushing. They did the damn thing, the Vikings offensive line. I'm very interested to know in the status of Josh Klein heading into next week against Chicago. He got taken out of the game due to a concussion, and he's been really, really fantastic. I had my doubts about him, but he's played well. Arguably our best offensive lineman along or after Brian O'Neill. But that whole right side is straight with Josh Klein. So if he's not in, we can bring in Dakota Dozier or maybe bring in Brett Jones, whatever. But I'm just interested to know the status of him. But the offensive line, they were great. I thought the play calling was outstanding. I thought there were a couple of plays against Green Bay where I scratched my head and said, Stefanski, what are you doing? But the play calling in this game was fantastic against the Raiders. I'm not a fan of pitch run plays. I think pitch run plays really gives the disadvantage to the offense. Instead of running north and south, you're running east and west, and the defensive line has a chance. They have more time to penetrate the offensive line and get in front or get behind the line of scrimmage to make plays on you easier. But the Vikings, through the first 3 games, they're one of the best teams in the league at running the pitch runs. And then also, I loved that inside handoff to Adam Thielen for the 3rd touchdown of the game. So play calling was exceptional. 2 rookies, they had themselves a game yesterday. Alex Madison, I'm very impressed with him. I was a little bit hesitant with him, not for his talent, but saying, hey, we got Mike Boone. We don't need another running back. But Alex Madison has been good so far. He's a north-south runner, doesn't F around. 4.8 yards per carry yesterday, 58 yards and a touchdown. So congratulations to him. And then, hey, Irv Smith Jr. We finally had an Irv Smith Jr. sighting, and it's about damn time. The last week, Friday when I previewed the Raiders, I said it is time to get Irv Smith involved in the passing game, and they finally did, because I want to see what Irv Smith Jr. is capable of in a regular season game, and he was lights out. You got to think at some point in time when Kyle Rudolph, whether he moves on to another team or whenever he retires, Irv Smith Jr. is going to take the tight end 1 job once Kyle Rudolph leaves the team. And I want to see what he's capable of. And you saw it. Obviously, besides the catches that he had yesterday through the first 2 games, he's shown, and even in the preseason, that he is the anti-Kyle Rudolph for the fact of he's a good blocker. He's a really good blocker. He's fast. He's a dynamic playmaker. You really saw that yesterday against the Raiders. You compare that to Kyle Rudolph, and I love Kyle Rudolph. I'm glad that we have him here to run those 12 formations. He's still a valuable asset. But you compare Irv Smith Jr. and his ability to run after the catch to Kyle Rudolph, and you're just sitting there, and I'm going to include my own Harlem Globetrotters music. Pew 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 pew. So I just want to see Irv Smith Jr. involved a lot, and when you can spread the ball around to Diggs, Thielen, Irv Smith Jr., Kyle Rudolph, Dalvin Cook, you have nonstop weapons to work with. And so I'm really, really excited to see what Irv Smith Jr. can do over the course of the season. 2 other things that I want to talk about before I end this show. Chad Beebe, he needs to go. I'm so tired of this dude. You muffed the punt yesterday. What the hell are you doing? You should have kept Brandon Zylstra over Chad Beebe. If you're not even going to be able to field punts, then what's the point of you being on this team? I'd rather have B.C. Johnson out there for the 3rd wide receiver spot, or Irv Smith Jr. lining up in a slot role as a wide receiver, whatever it is. I'm done with Chad Beebe. He needs to go. We need a new punt returner, whether that's going to be Mike Hughes or whatever. Somebody else can do it, damn it. And lastly, the only thing that I have against the offense, the only thing I'm going to nitpick on, can we stop having our fullback C.J. Ham run slant routes or any wide receiver routes for that matter, unless it's out of the backfield? Like, who the hell do you think he is? Mike Boone? Come on, man. Just went right off his hands. Should be the spokesperson for Butterfingers. So that's the only thing that I have a problem with. I like the play, but if you're going to run that play, instead of having C.J. Ham run out or line up in a wide receiver spot, have Mike Boone do that. He's the big playmaker that you can have whenever you want to give Dalvin Cook a rest. So that was really it. Vikings, they moved to 2-1, fantastic game yesterday before visiting the Chicago Bears next week in week 4. We'll see. We do this 3 times a week. Mediocre Best Sports Podcast with Realistic Randy. Check me out on Twitter at realistic_Randy. Facebook at Realistic Randy. We'll see ya.